Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the McKinney number 1001 6x4.5 in a 600 finish. This is a double acting hinge is what it is. This is branded by McKinney, and this is what it looks like. This is, in essence, just simply a double acting hinge. This is a very typical and common design that you will find from McKinney, cloned by other people. Okay, this is a hinge that will allow your door to double act. Okay, go in, go out, single doors, pairs of doors, whatever the case might be. This is a bit of a this is a less common variant of a typical double acting hinge. So a lot of things to talk about when it comes to this hinge in particular. So this is their 1001. They call this 6-inch. 6-inch, while you can put a tape measure on the height of the hinge and reference a 6-inch dimension, okay, if I were to take a height of that, of the leaf basically, the 6-inch actually refers to the range of door thickness that this hinge can handle. This 6-inch hinge from McKinney can handle thicknesses from 1 3/8 to 1 3/4. So when it comes to, hey, I need a double acting spring hinge, okay, the very first question is, what's the door thickness? So if you were to say 1.5 inches, okay, well, you can use a 6-inch hinge for that. That would work out great. If you were to say 1 3/4, great. If you were to say 2-inch, no, this isn't the right hinge. Can be made to be the right hinge, kind of, by mortising the hinge to stuff the mortising the face of the door on both sides to put the smaller hinge on. If you were to say 1 inch, no, this wouldn't be the right hinge either. The template pattern of the screws just wouldn't allow a thin 1-inch door to fit in. So 1 3/8 to 1 3/4 is the door range. This particular hinge, this is the jam leaf, okay? This is the leaf that will go to the frame. The door will swing out, then the door will swing this way. That's how it double acts. So this particular hinge has this smaller leaf here. This is where the 4.5 inch, the 4.5 inch comes in. This is a leaf that is intended to go onto an otherwise standard door, a wood door that's been prepped for a 4.5 inch hinge, or a hollow metal door that's been prepped for a 4.5 inch hinge. If you're using hollow metal doors and you want them to double act, this is a good hinge to use, but be mindful, and we're going to get to it. This hinge requires a lot of room to fit this between the jamb and the edge of the door on your cased opening frame. So while you could double act a hollow metal door, you could use this hinge. You are going to need to undersize that door or oversize your frame, which is not typical because you're probably dealing with standard rough opening construction. So you'll need to undersize your door by, probably 3/8, but we'll get to the installation instructions and look at that. So this would be a good hinge when you already have a 4.5 inch prep. Now McKinney also offers one with the standard size leaf here, but if you're going to double act a hollow metal door, there's no reason to use that standard hinge. Use this one, assuming that you're starting with a hollow metal door that has the prep, and that you've worked out how to undersize the door or oversize the frame, because it will ultimately save you a little bit of work, because the hinge prep is already done. If you were to use the standard hinge on a hollow metal door, now you don't have any preparation in the edge of the door for the hinges, so you're working to attach those hinges. You would then need a door that's undersized and blank hinge. So there's work regardless of how you approach it. But this sort of hinge, it's going to be 4.5, and going to be using a door that's been already prepped. The other thing is, of course, when you're dealing with a double acting door, that needs to be either square edged and undersized based on the square edge preparation, or it needs to be square edge always on the hinge. It can be radiused or square edge on the strike side, so to speak. And we'll get to that when we get to the installation instructions. Let's go over some other details of this item, and in particular the information that's listed in the extended description down below. Now, as we continue on looking at the hinge itself, this 1001 from McKinney, and I'm just looking at the extended description, the door flange, mortised or surface applied to the door edge. Well, what they're referring to, actually, is the standard 6-inch version, which indeed can be either surface-mounted or mortised. Well, this is the 4.5-inch door leaf, so it's always going to be mortised. You could surface mount it, but you wouldn't be buying this hinge if you were going to surface mount. Do not use on doors with hinge edge bevel. That's for sure. You have to have, in all instances, a square edge hinge style, okay? Because that leaf does not have any swag to it. It's not relieved at all to account for a bevel. It's just, that leaf is just flat, okay? Very simple, very straightforward. Non-template, well, that refers to the 6-inch hinge or the jam leaf, but this is absolutely what's called a template. The location of those screw holes are the template pattern. This is indeed non-handed. You can install them with the tension collar. You see it here and here. You don't see them down here, towards the top or towards the bottom of the door. And if in fact you're doing a pair of doors, the manufacturer of this hinge will recommend that you turn one upside down. Okay, packed with all wood screws. That is not true because of the fact that this hinge is meant to go onto at least a hollow metal door, or can, and is going to indeed include wood screws and machine screws. They're really counting on, calculating that you've got a wood jamb and you have a steel door. The fact of the matter is they don't give you enough screws if it happens to be going to a hollow metal cased opening frame, and it very likely is going to be going to a hollow metal cased opening frame. So at the time of order, absolutely specify to us what the makeup of screws needs to be. Indicate all machine screws, all wood screws, half machine screws, half wood screws. The last thing you want to do is to get to the job and say, okay, so I don't have enough screws for installation. There are only 8 screws in here, and that is not enough. There are only 8 machine screws. So be mindful. Reach out to us during the order process, or just indicate. Want to make sure you get the right screws. This is made of steel, there's no doubt, and the 600 in the part number, well, there is not a 600 in the part number, but if there was, it would mean prime coat. This is just prime coated. Okay, this is just a prime coat that is intended to be painted. It's been prepped to receive paint by others. We talked about its door thickness, 1 3/8 to 1 3/4. Again, you can, it's not recommended, but you could, into this door pocket, fit a thicker door, but you're going to have to count on notching it. And I've seen people do it, and it certainly worked. But you're really dealing with the weight of the door and the width of the door, more so than the thickness of the door when it comes to the success of the installation. If you've got a door that is, and we'll get to the weight when we get to the installation instructions, but you have to stay within the designed limits. This is designed for a 3-foot door that's 90 pounds. You would be able to open up that envelope a bit by adding an additional hinge, but the factory who makes this hinge, I've been to this factory. I've seen their testing room. Okay, they test their products very completely. In fact, so when they're saying that it's 90 pounds and up to 3 foot wide, that's what it is. It's not 130 pounds at 4 foot wide kind of stuff. And they're sold as each. When you buy one, we're going to ship you just one hinge. So be mindful of that. Now, there are supporting documents linked to down below, and let's pause this video, switch to the screen view, and take a look at all the supporting documentation for this hinge. Now, this is the item that we're looking at here, and we have some supporting documentation, and we're going to go over all of it. We'll have a catalog, a cross-reference, a template, installation instructions, things of that nature. So, in no particular order, let's look at catalog first. And by the way, there are currently only 2 supporting document links that are here, but by the time you're seeing this video, all of these following documents will be populated. So, in no particular order, catalog. This is the manufacturer's full-line catalog. We won't spend any time on this except to do a find function on our keyboard for 1001, and it will take you to the page where you can go over the double-acting spring hinge from McKinney. You'll notice that the you will notice that they have other sizes that are listed here. 3, 4, 5, and 6 inch. Like I said earlier, the very first question is, how thick is the door? Okay. This is the B and the C is what you need to be looking at. So, minimum thickness of door is listed. Okay, on a 6-inch hinge, it's from 1 3/8 to 1 3/4. They're also saying that you can go down to 1 1/4. If that's true, then I have to only believe that. But I understand it to be 1 3/8. Maximum thickness of door with chamfering, 1 3/4. Maximum thickness of door without chamfering, 1 3/4. I believe what the word chamfer, the way I understand it, is to mean if you have a door edge, and if you were to chamfer it, you would put a very slight, you would take a V-groove router bit and chamfer over the door. What I think they mean to be saying is, without radiusing, you can install this as a square edge door on the, what would be the strike style. It always has to be square edge on the hinge style. Or you can install this as a radius door. I think they're terming chamfering with radius. Breaking the edge is what I understand chamfer to mean. Yeah, to radius the door, you're going to do a large radius. So they're referring, I believe they're referring to the thickness of the door, the maximum thickness of the door. Here's your frame, your cased opening frame, just a hollow metal frame. If you are doing a square edge door or not chamfered, you are going to be limited as to the thickness of the door based on that. And if you were to chamfer or radius or ease over the door, the maximum thickness can be slightly increased because of what you're doing here and what you're doing here. Okay, you can get by with a little thicker door when you're going to chamfer or radius or ease that edge. When we get to the installation instructions, it'll become obvious whether or not they call out radiusing it or how they term it. So chamfer is, I'm not familiar with the term chamfer used in this way. So your door thickness, maximum thickness of door without chamfering, I would think that you're going to be here for sure. But the point is your door thickness and your size. That's what's related. Okay, you have to be mindful of your 1006, 3 hinges or 2 hinges per door, maximum weight, maximum width, door height. Minimum height for weights shown. Hinge capacity decreases as height decreases. Hinge capacity decreases as height decreases. I can't make intelligent commentary on what that actually means. Hinge capacity decreases as height decreases. I don't think the capacity of the hinge decreases or increases at all. The way that you apply the door will impact the hinge and its ability to do the job you're asking it to do. And I think when they say minimum height, what they're really saying is, for this 6-inch hinge, you're going to put 3 of them on a door, 107 pounds, in which is not the same data that they're giving here at 90 pounds. What they're saying there, I believe, is if you were to take these 3 of these hinges and put them onto a 5-foot tall door or the lower leaf of a Dutch door that's 40-inch tall or thereabouts, you're going to find that it doesn't work really well. So as you go with a smaller, shorter door, that hinge is going to be possibly far too much hardware for the height of the door. So I think what they may be saying is, you're going to observe behavior of a very aggressively swinging door because you've got too much spring power, is what I would think they actually mean there. Okay. This is the actual hinge that we are looking at with the 4.5-inch templated leaf in this page. And okay, so there is some nice information that's here. Door flange designed to fit a standard 4.5-inch templated hinge. The jamb flange is indeed surface applied, as they're showing here. Mortise flange. Do not use on doors with beveled hinge edges, non-handed, packed with all machine screws and half wood screws. That is indeed what we have here. So be mindful to... actually, that is not what we have here. They're short. The screws that are in the packaging is definitely short a machine screw, if you're going to do all machine screws. Polished and plated or prime coat finished. Polished and plated. Maybe they can do your bronze, your brasses, your chromes, your nickels, polished or plated, or you can do a prime coat. Lock side clearance. And again, we get a different dimension here, a different value, 105 pounds. Lock side clearance. If you're doing a flat edge, a square edge door, you need to have at least 1/8 of an inch on the lock side. If you're doing a radius edge door, you can get that down to a 1/16. Okay, depending on your door thickness, you're going to need 1/8 of an inch at a minimum. So calculate and we'll get to the opening size calculation in a moment, but calculate your size based on what they're calling out here. The reason you want to know about flat edge or square edge versus a radius edge is because, getting a square edge door is easy. Taking that same square edge door and putting a radius on it, that's not so easy, because that radius it's a large radius, 1.25 inches probably at a minimum, 1.75 inch style radius. So that ends up being a very large round over bit, and a lot of people don't own a round over bit of that size, and they certainly do exist. 2.5 inch diameter round over bit. I believe Amana makes one, and I think the one I own is by Amana. The 2.25 inch diameter. Yeah, I had said 2.5 inch, but think of a bit that's 2.5 inch diameter. That makes for a large router bit. Okay, and that's a lot of people simply don't own those. Okay, so that's the discussion that you'll need to determine if you are radiusing it or leaving it square edge. It is recommended that 3 hinges be used on doors as indicated above. These listed weights include a margin of safety, minimum clearance required on door edge and lock side of the frame, hinge side clearance, allow 1/4 inch per door because of jamb flange and hinge body not being mortised. The center hinge should be installed as close as possible to the top of the hinge for maximum support. Hinge capacity decreases as door height decreases. There's that slightly confusing language again. They're saying use 3 hinges on your door. If you're doing a stock hollow metal door, you're going to have 3 hinges prepped, right? Now, that's where you're going to put your hinges. If you're doing a door that you can dictate, I would say give yourself a hinge here. Give yourself a hinge 2 or 3 inches below. Put 1 down at the bottom. That's what you're going to want. All of the weight of the door is up in this area. 70% of the weight of the door is carried by that top hinge. Best practice would be to soldier stack the top 2. Okay. Now let's move on to the next document here. This is just the manufacturer's website showing a stock image of the hinge laid flat open in front of you. This leaf would fold over this way. This leaf would fold in behind. Then we have the cut sheet. Let's see here now. Cross-reference. Okay, this is not really appropriate to this discussion, except that they do have a cross-reference from the McKinney hinge to the bomber equal part number. So not super important. We're going to get into next in terms of documentation. What else do we have here? This, I believe, is called template, this link. Template, cut sheet, then installations. Okay, so cut sheet is this. This document is listed below. We've gone over this. This was done in the catalog. Now here's your template. The template is really nothing other than a technical drawing showing everything. You know, if you have any questions on dimensionally as it pertains to this hinge, there's your document. What you need to know is this is 4.5 inch. These are template locations for the hinge in terms of the screws. This is non-template over here. That'll go to your cased opening frame. That's what it'll look like in cross-section. Then finally, we're going to get into the installation instructions, and those are here. They do not go into an extended discussion regarding how to size the door, although they've given you the information. So there's not a lot to be concerned with when it comes to sizing the door, because again, they've already told us you have a cased opening frame. You've got your hinge. You've got your door. Okay. So they said you need a 1/4 inch over here. Over here they've told you you need an 1/8 if it's square edge. You need a 1/16 if it's chamfered or radiused. Okay, so at this point you can determine your net door size. You have to start with something. Do you have a finished opening? And then you determine your door thickness, or pardon me, your door width, or do you have a door width and then you're going to build your cased opening frame off of that? Okay, but now you know the dimension. Most likely you're going to need to be 3/8. Okay, 3/8 of an inch. I would, you know that you're going to need 3/8. You could make it 5/16. I find that awfully tight. A 1/16 of an inch doesn't leave a lot of margin for when you hang that door, and that door is going to double act. Okay. One telltale sign is when you have your door and it's double acting, that you don't have enough spring power is it hits the jamb over here when it's moving. What really happens is when you've got your door hanging, your hinges, especially if you don't have adequate hinge or your door is too heavy, the door actually moves out this way as it double acts through the opening. It actually goes through a slight elliptical. It doesn't just make a perfect, arc either way when it double acts. It kind of, goes elliptical a little bit, because that weight again is pulling on the door this way at all times. And then you put the force of actually operating the door in and out. Yeah, you can count on that door possibly hitting the jamb. And I would think at that point, 3/8 of an inch is going to be where I would start with. And if you're doing more than one, you'll make adjustments in the following ones. This goes to talk about that soldier stacking we talked about earlier. This would be considered best practice for doors. How to set the tension, we'll get to that in a moment. So they're basically showing you here what the door looks like as it articulates. And you can study that. Down here shows the setting of tension. Now, installation instructions. Remove spring tension from each barrel by inserting tension rod into the tension adjustment hole or the tension collar. Rotate in direction of the arrow as shown in figure 2 and 3. No figure 2 or 3, but it's got to be here and here. Locate hinges as shown in figure 1. Align the center line of the door of the hinge and the center line of the frame. So when you're installing your hinge onto your cased opening frame, here's your cased opening frame, that center line of the jamb needs to be the center line of the hinge completely. And therefore the center line of the door. Now, attaching the hinge to the door and frame, you're going to install them without any tension, which means the hinge is going to literally let the door fall out of the, it's going to fall out of looking like this. It's going to literally fall out. So be mindful of that. You will need to wedge the door up, shim it, get it plumb and in position as you are attaching the door to the frame. What I've seen done every time is the hinges applied to the jamb and then the door brought to the opening, and those leaves are attached to the door at that point. Now, setting of tension is when the tension collar is pointed towards the top of the door, you will turn that collar clockwise so as to achieve an increasing of the spring tension, as they're showing here. Yeah, figure 2 and 3. So tension holes on bottom. So what they're saying here is when the tension collar is on the top of the hinge, you'll use figure 2. In a double door, for best alignment of double doors, mount hinges on one door with tension collar up and on the other down. Shimming may be necessary. I've had people call and say, my doors aren't completely aligned in the opening. Got a pair of doors, got the jamb, and what people call and say, yeah, the doors are not flush with each other. So you might have to literally take your jamb, take your hinge, and get underneath there and insert a shim to tip that door in some direction. I've also had people say, they've called and said, I think there's something wrong with your hinges because the doors are like way out of alignment, as in really out of alignment. And upon, and this is the center line, and upon discussing this with the client, tell me about your doors. Where did you get your doors? How did they come? Turns out they had beveled edges on that hinge side. Okay, and didn't even realize it. So the moral of the story is, in double doors, tension collar up on one side, tension collar down on the opposite side. So be mindful of that. The next thing really here to do, and they do illustrate that here and here, the next thing to do is and lubrication, we do have a Bomber-approved lubricant here for sale. I don't recall the cost of the can. It can't be very much money. But there is a particular product that they endorse. I generally never find it necessary to lubricate the spring. Sometimes people call and say, boy, my spring makes a lot of noise. Well, it turns out they've installed it in an exterior application, and there's rust occurring on the surface of the spring. So that, these hinges are not meant to be installed in an exterior application. But there is a Bomber-approved lubricant that we sell, and we are able to supply that to you. So what I'd like to do at this point is switch to the screen view, the camera view, so we can look at the setting of tension on the hinge. Now let's take a look at the setting of tension on this hinge. Again, tension collar, when that's pointed towards the top of the door, you're going to insert, for every order that you'll place, you'll get at least one tension rod. Okay, that's a tension rod. Those can be purchased separately. You'll insert that into a hole, into an available hole in the tension collar. Then you're going to rotate it clockwise. As you do so, you reveal new additional holes. Okay. For every hinge that you order, you'll get 2 tension pins. That long end is what you're going to put down into one of the new holes that you reveal. And then you'll make adjustments. That's simple. That's all you do. If it's on the bottom, you're going to rotate it counterclockwise, is the bottom line. Okay? So clockwise, when it's at the top, there is an arrow on the barrel of the hinge right at the tip of my finger. So after the hinges are attached to the frame, you've got the door attached to the door leaf of the hinge. You will want to bring the door to the closed position, and then start to set tension. Put 3 holes of tension on both sides, on all 3 hinges, and then very carefully open the door a little bit and let it start to swing back and forward. Proceed accordingly with adjusting the hinges until you get a proper full movement through the door, and it's self-centering and closing. It's not hitting the jamb or any other behavior that causes a failure. At that point, you're done. You're done with the installation. This concludes this video. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can, and these are sold as each, by the way. When you buy one, you'll be sent one. This client happened to order 2. 2 would be fairly common for this type of order. 3 would be common. You can buy them in any quantity that you need. The factory will commonly send hinges that are in chrome, just in a typical finish that would be matching of a zinc or a stainless or a nickel, because these hinges have been ordered as prime coat, so there won't be really, they won't necessarily send prime coat screws for those. So that link below this video to the manufacturer's page, that is handy because it will allow you to review not only all of the McKinney products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the current full product catalog. And interestingly enough, there is an archival catalog from 2006 through 2008, trim and auxiliary catalog. There's even one from 1929. The name McKinney used to be associated with forged iron hardware. And like all companies that are in existence today, they are not the same company today that they were many decades ago. But it's interesting to be able to look at, to do research on, some of that iron hardware that you'll find in certain areas, along the Atlantic coast. You'll find Gothic-style material, in hinges and lock sets, things of that nature. So if you happen to be doing a project at some point that involves that type of hardware, that is a great resource to be able to go and refer to and kind of take a look and see if something even remotely matches, just for, historical research really only. If you have any questions on the McKinney, this is their part number 1001 and a 6x4.5 and a prime coat finish, or any other McKinney product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.